Washington A-list dinner party may be giving the clearest signal yet that establishment Republicans are no longer afraid of Donald Trump. The Gridiron Dinner is a century-old gathering of politicians, journalists, and elites where speakers take turns roasting each other, similar to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And at the dinner, New Hampshire's Republican Governor Chris Sununu took on former President Trump. Using profanity, Sununu called the former president crazy, to laughter and applause and, notably, no booing. Quote, "I don't think he's so crazy that you could put him in a mental institution, but I think if he were in one, he ain't getting out." Meanwhile, Donald Trump over the weekend traveled to Michigan, his latest on a string of rallies around the country. He's not only promoting his own potential 2024 presidential run, he's also taking on a number of Republican incumbents running for re-election this year, who he sees as opposition to his own power. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hillyard joins us now with more on Trump's Republican targets, and you were there.
Yes.
How did it go?
I mean, this is a string of rallies that he is holding now. He 1 week ago was in Georgia. He was in South Carolina. I mean, let's suggest. I mean, we're talking about more than 10,000 people here. Okay. I mean, I got there at 9:30 in the morning. There were already thousands of folks out there here. So to suggest that his influence has diminished in the party would be, I think, willful ignorance. It was just 1 week ago he was in Georgia. 2 weeks earlier he was in South Carolina. But why these states? Well, because there's races that he's interested in. In South Carolina, trying to take down Nancy Mace, Tom Rice. Georgia, Brad Raffensperger, Brian Kemp. Michigan, Peter Meijer, Fred Upton. These are part of what we're calling the Big 12 here. These are the GOP incumbents who Trump has backed primary challengers against here. And why is this significant? He's putting his own political capital on the line like we have never seen him willfully do. The only two times he's done this prior was in 2018 in the Mark Sanford race and in the Chris Kobach race, in which he has backed primary challengers. What does this mean here? Over the next 4 months, I think that we will get a really good taste of just how potent his influence is.
By the way, those two that you mentioned, they lost.
In the general election.
In the general election, exactly.
And which is exactly the argument that a Fred Upton in Michigan makes here. He goes, I have been representing my district for more than 30 years. You have the potential of losing the general election if you do not go with me here. But I think we've got part of an interview because we sat down last week with Tom Rice, who will tell you, I voted with President Trump 94% of the time. I am as much of a Trump Republican as you could get, but ultimately he voted for impeachment. And everybody on that Big 12 list either voted to certify the election or voted to impeach him. I think we've got part of an interview with Upton and with Rice.
It doesn't have anything to do with, Republican ideals. It's Trump demands absolute loyalty. That's what he's about. Donald Trump's policies, I believe, lifted American families. I think he was a consequential president. But if he attacks the Constitution, if he's wrong, I'm going to vote against it, and I'm going to fight that.
He perceives you as an opposition force within the Republican Party.
Trump is driven by a few things. He's driven by recognition. He wants to be recognized. He's driven by power, and he's driven by revenge. Of anybody I've ever met, he's probably the most spiteful, vengeful person I've ever met.
Are you concerned about a consolidation of power around him within your party?
Well, I'm concerned about a consolidation of power around anybody in the federal government. The way our Constitution was designed is to prevent power from being consolidated.
My message is, I'm not a rubber stamp. If you want that, you got the wrong guy. Nobody has produced any evidence at all that, in fact, the election was fraudulent and overturned what otherwise was an election that was certified by literally every single county clerk, whether they be Republican or Democrat.
Does your ability to win the general election matter as much to Trump as your loyalty to him?
Probably doesn't. Probably doesn't mean much to him, but he's a little bit on a scorched earth path.
If you win your race against this Trump-backed challenger, what message is sent then to the former president?
That he's not as strong as he might have thought that he was.
You are right. This is the first time Trump's really put it out on the line. I mean, I always remember when he'd say something and get a smattering of boos from the crowd, he'd immediately back up. But here, he's going after people. Like, for instance, Brian Kemp, got to be near the top of his list. Kim's doing extraordinarily well right now. I know it's still early, but you look at Liz Cheney. You talk to Liz Cheney. Liz not concerned. She's just not concerned. She knows it's going to be tough and tight, but a lot of people. I mean, he's taking. You look at Fred Upton. I served with Fred. Fred knows how to win elections.
And next May is that Georgia primary. There's another one, West Virginia, next month. We may be having the conversation that Trump is throwing up L's. And if he can't even bat 500 over the next 4 months, does somebody, Mike Pence, Ron DeSantis here, begin to finally stand up, and do the likes of Joni Ernst, others begin to try to coalesce around somebody that is not him?
All of Trump's power in the party throughout the whole time he was in there has been based on power, right? It's just been about fear. Right. The Trump base will turn against you. You'll get primary. This is what every establishment Republican said for 4 years in private was, I can't go against Trump. His people are too loyal. If I go against him, I'll get primaried and I'll lose. If Donald Trump goes out on the field and goes to Georgia, the most, in his mind, the totemic state of 2020, he goes down there and tries to get Kemp knocked out of there, fails on that, as it currently looks like. I mean, there's still some time, but Perdue is a long shot in that race at this point. Yeah. And Herschel Walker. Trump's back in Herschel Walker. Now the party down there is going, the guy's got this domestic violence history. We got to get him out of there. Trump could fall on his face on two big fronts in the state that matters most to him, and if that gets punctured, if the Trump's ability to be a kingmaker within the Republican Party in these primaries gets punctured, I don't think it's just a question of who runs against him. I think it's the Wizard of Oz. It's like he's no longer the man behind the curtain. People look at him and say he's a paper tiger, and that is the only thing that could break his power over this party, and you could see it this year.
Hey, Vaughn, you mentioned he's spending his political capital when he goes to these rallies. Is he spending any of the enormous sums of money that he's raised since he left the presidency on any of his candidates?
No. There's $110 million that he has in the bank
what
here.
A shot.
Look, he didn't spend it on Bo Brooks. And look where Mo Brooks is at. He pulled his endorsement because there was going to be a loss in the standings for him there. Carrie Lake, running for governor in Arizona here. There's another candidate in that race, everybody, who is spending millions of dollars. The question is, at what point does Trump begin to try to invest in some of these races here? Because we're talking about it. Power and influence, those are two different things right now. He has the power and he has the influence. But if his influence wanes, what happens to that power?
A life of covering Donald, just think about Donald Trump's life. When will he start to spend money on someone else's behalf? That question answers itself.
Zero. Okay, so before you go, Sarah Palin again.
Yes, I talked to a longtime aide and friend of hers here over the weekend. She's jumping into the race to fill Don Young's seat here, which she filled for 50 years, but she is one of 51 candidates. She is also looking to run for a full term. But look, she was endorsed by Donald Trump just last night. In a lot of ways, that advisor was telling me, look, Sarah Palin was Donald Trump before Donald Trump. Essentially, he co-opted the Tea Party, the Sarah Palin movement, to turn it into the MAGA movement.
We got to take this show to Anchorage, because I'm telling you,
that would be fun.
There's this primary. There's this special open primary in June. 51 candidates. The top 4 vote getters then compete in a special open general election in August to fill the Don Young seat. On that same day is the other open primary for the general election. It's like it's one of the great goat rodeos in the history of American politics. We all got to move to Anchorage for the summer.
Anchorage is
we'll send Mike to Juneau.
Exactly. But you talk about Sarah Palin was Trump before. It's also very interesting. Sarah Palin in 2010 could do no wrong. Everything she touched won. Nikki Haley's the most. Nikki was in 4th place. Mika and I actually did a debate down there. She was in 4th place. Sarah Palin comes in, endorses her, she wins, and that was the story. 2 years later, it was gone. Yeah, and that's the problem with these type of figures. They're hot until the second they're not, and then, man, the party moves on ruthlessly.
I want Mika's psychological insight on this. How much do you think Sarah Palin getting into this is about some sense of the fact that she's annoyed about the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the Lauren Boeberts, and people who are like her spawn, are taking up are getting all this coverage, and they've forgotten about Sarah Palin.
What about me?
Yes.
All right, Vaughn Hillyard, nice work. Thank you so much for your reporting.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.